I've been looking back as of late, which I suppose is always a dangerous thing to do. Often, events are not as you would like to remember them. Britain's exit from the European Union is one of the most significant geopolitical developments in the past 2 decades. I'm not going to discuss the merits of our withdrawal or any drawbacks in this video. Just know that I have not become a raging Europhile, so you don't have to berate me for that. Yet, the niggling thought remains. A lot has changed since 2016. We, on the dissident right, no longer believe in many of the things we did then. Or rather, we have matured our conceptions, to put it politely. We are perhaps less ideologically driven in politics. We have become more sophisticated by becoming less sophisticated. Try and work that one out. Jokes aside, can we still justify Brexit? Do our old arguments still hold up to ourselves and our more revealing, more granular filter? First, we must examine those arguments as they were, and still are, made. But that would be very dull. I'm sure everyone watching this video recalls the debates, and I'm also sure we all understand their basis. Sovereignty. Practically all the pro-Brexit arguments have at their axiomatic basis the concept of sovereignty. As an example, here is a brief quote from Douglas Murray, a significant pro-Brexit writer.
Well, Brexit was an attempt by the British public, a majority of the British public, to reassert their belief in the nation-state. I voted Brexit, like most of my fellow countrymen, and I did so, I think, for the same reasons as most of them, which is that I thought we'd lost our understanding of how we were governed, and that this was absolutely central. It's one of the reasons why we've had a pretty peaceful country, Britain, for some hundreds of years. Parliament was elected by the people, was accountable to the people, and if it let you down, you chucked them out.
Let us ignore, for the purposes of this video, his straying into historical anachronism and political naivety. Does this concept of sovereignty, based around the ability to make one's own laws, still hold water today? To thoughtlessly reply, the unconditional affirmative would be the simple, unthinking response. It would, I also think, be a lie. A lie of the worst kind, a lie to ourselves. I contend that, as the dissident right understands human nature at the present, we should view these old pro-Brexit arguments, as symbolised by Mr. Murray, as credulous and incomplete. It is the custom to view states somewhat like people, the body politic, as it were, a sort of symbolic person made up of people, and as people talk, states talk. As people fight, states fight. It is fundamental to the human desire to belong to an organism greater than themselves. But this law-based conception of Douglas, the archetypical normicon at the time, even if he's evolved since, is deeply liberal. It is based around the idea of all states being fundamentally equal, all just single little symbolic particles of matter, divisible from each other, yet essentially indistinct. From this frame of reference, Uganda is identical to the United States, Micronesia to Russia. Yet human beings are not equal, and neither are states. It is most human to exist within a hierarchy, put a people on an island, seal them off from the world, and a year later some sort of vertically orientated hierarchy will have emerged. Indeed, the hierarchy might be considered as having always been there, but merely being without an avenue of expression. So if people exist within a great chain of being, so do states. This claim can be observed in the most basic of geopolitical phenomena. The United States can influence Britain. Britain can influence Ireland. Some countries are good servants, Canada for instance. Others, like Libya, are not. So, if states do exist in a great chain of being, is there any justification for withdrawing from the European Union, which is itself a sort of vertical hierarchy? I think there is, and that justification can be found too in interpersonal interaction. To exhibit this, I hope you will allow me a detour. Sir John Brown was born in Sheffield in the year 1816. He was the son of a slater, that is, a man who covers roofs with slate. He was educated at a local school whose lessons were held in an attic, and was apprenticed at the age of 14 to a cutlery company. He was hard-working and successful. In 1844 he started his own business, which prospered finely, and in 1848 he invented the conical steel spring for use on railway carriages. In 1856 he opened the massive Atlas Works, which was integral to the early business of armour-plating warships. He was knighted in 1867 and died a venerable gentleman at the age of 80, the grandfather of the City of Steel. His life mirrors the life of a few states. Venice, say, which began as little more than a hovel on the edge of a stinking lagoon, and grew to become, for a time, the master of the Eastern Mediterranean. Or Sparta, whose life began as an unexceptional state in the Peloponnese, one of many, yet who reshaped herself into a beacon of military might, eventually overthrowing the overmighty Athenians. There are limitations to the parallels between state and man, I will not deny it, but this analogy serves its purpose. What can be gathered from these examples is that John Brown was a man of humble means, yet he leveraged his advantages to his advantage. He became more than he was, or perhaps he became who he was meant to be. Who can say, except God? He could not break the chain of being, but he could climb. Can a country not also climb? Britain's geopolitical position is difficult to pin down. It is certainly, like the rest of the West, a satellite to the US. But unlike most of the West, it already has the capacity to remove its fetters. Upon the other side of the Atlantic, there is the German-led European Union, staffed with a cadre of internationalist Europeans whose ties to their own nations are tenuous. This class of people imposes laws, regulations, and systems upon the member states, laws which, they say, seek to provide a just and equitable future of the many peoples of Europe. In truth, they strangle the fortunes of particular states, keeping them squarely grounded, while raising other states higher, namely Germany, and to a lesser extent, France. The system benefits Germany's industrial base and France's agricultural centres, while disarming potential barriers of resistance. An EU country cannot raise its tariffs, build up a native industrial base, and compete more fairly with a larger and more developed economy of scale. To generalise, German goods flood in, devastating embryonic competition, and the remaining industrial base of a nation becomes a facilitator to their own economic domination. In light of all this, of what we know now, is Britain sovereign? Is Britain free? Or is it as free as our innate limitations allow? The answer is no. Yet without the leverage to help ourselves, we will never be sovereign. Certainly, while others hold the power of law over us, we will never be free. While others demand we manufacture, buy and sell by their customs, we will never be truly strong. True sovereignty might be considered the ability to gain sovereignty.